Good afternoon, Crystal. How are you?
I'm well,
Good to
hanging
hear.
in there.
Well, we have an interesting broadcast for us to do today.
Okie
Um,
dokie.
it's uh, it's something that I've thought about for a long time, and that is that um, just to get right out and say it, 401k plans are not designed for employees, right? Excuse
Mm-hmm.
me, just a moment.
Mm-hmm.
I was ready for everything except your bio.
Oh.
Sorry about that. Um, yeah, well, hopefully that lack of professionalism won't shoot me. But the way it was explained to me is that sometime back in the late '70s, early '80s, the Department of Labor and the IRS gave financial advisors the task of educating Americans to invest.
Okay.
And I've been working for a company for a little while. When I had gone back to their headquarters, and the one of the senior VPs was talking to this group of employees, and he said that very same thing, that stockbrokers were given the opportunity to uh, teach America how to invest. And this was back in the, I want to say, back in the 90s. And he said we have failed in that charge. And I think that's actually coming across. And so that's why I was really intrigued about this particular topic. We assume that people are investors, and in actuality, they're employees. And so I just wanted to talk briefly about how that's broken down for folks. So first, I'll read your bio, and then we will jump into the presentation. Is that okay?
Ah,
Or is that,
sounds good to me.
actually, why don't we call it a discussion rather
Okay.
than a presentation? Oof. Oh
That
boy.
works.
All right. Okay. Well, everyone, please welcome my friend and colleague, Crystal Mitchell. She is a business coach and consultant. She's the CEO of Mitchell Business Solutions. She's a co director of Recycling Black Dollars, co host of The Business Zone with Crystal and Gilbert. That's another weekly online radio show. She's an
Mm-hmm.
instructor at Mount San Antonio Community College, a certified network for teaching entrepreneurship instructor, and a QuickBooks Pro Advisor financial strategist. Hey, Crystal, how you doing this morning?
I'm hanging. And yourself?
Any day with you is a good day, ma'am. So I'm
Oh,
doing
that's nice.
very good, very well. Well, as you heard up at the top there, we have a pretty interesting thing to talk about, and it's something that bothers many of us in the field because we run into folks who are not investors. As much as we try to make them investors, and as much as we get disappointed that they don't understand how the market works, and the reality of the situation is that they don't understand it because they are not investors, they are employees. And
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately, their retirement plan was designed for investors. And that's a tough pill to swallow, I think, for most of us out here in the field of retirement plans. And so we're going to go over that reality, how that actually works or
Okay.
looks, and then we're also going to talk a little bit about what that means to the participants, and then lastly, we're going to talk about some things that people can do as HR consultants or as plan sponsors to actually help their participants get to the level of retirement assets that they need. So, it's interesting to me that you were kind enough to bring up a couple of topics along the way. One being something like, why is it that my wealth isn't growing like wealthy people's wealth is growing? Why isn't my 401k growing like that? And
Mm-hmm.
then also, I'm X amount of years old. How much should I have? How should I get there? Right. So we've
Mm-hmm.
had some conversations about that. And I tend to talk a pretty narrow speak with regard to 401ks. I'm sure. Well, let me ask you: have you ever thought about, this is for investors? I'm not an investor. How does this work for me?
Well, not me, but because I'm in the financial industry, but
Mhm.
I do know my clients and and relatives and friends. They don't know too much about the as being an investor. What they do know about, they've heard it from somebody else that have talked about how much they lost. And so consequently, it makes them very, very leery about
Yes,
that, right?
yes, yes.
And depending on where you've come from in the world, um, you know, certain countries have taken all of the citizens' wealth for themselves, so they're even more leery than others. And they're definitely some people are afraid of banks because they think the banks could definitely take their money and not give it. So those are the things that I think, and just not having financial literacy, understanding money and how it works. That's a lot of times what prevents them from being investors because they don't know what that is. They don't have the education. And so, but they've heard lots of rumors that have been devastating for certain people.
Yeah, it's you're spot on. I couldn't agree more. People have heard and they aren't educated, and that's just a horrible combination. So, a couple of things I want to bring out is number one, the reality of what's happening right now, and that is when you think about it. Uh, well, I have a quote here that suggests that one of the biggest misconceptions about 401ks is that if employees aren't engaged or aren't saving enough, then something must be wrong with them or with HR. And the truth of that is that's really not the case because most 401ks weren't designed for people. They were designed for efficiency and compliance and scale. Right.
Yeah.
So they're designed for people who are actually know what they're doing and how they can do that effectively rather than designed for people who are really new to this. And we've seen that in a couple of forms. One is the enrollment forms can be confusing. The investment menus are designed for people that know how to invest, and people make their decision about how they're going to invest, and then they forget about it. There's a
Mm-hmm.
lack of follow up. I know in my own experience, we have what are called enrollment meetings, so people can
Mm-hmm.
talk to someone like myself to get enrolled, but it's very difficult to establish a follow up meeting. So it's very difficult to establish, okay, now that you're in the plan, what do you do? Right? Those meetings are tough. Or beyond that, now that you're approaching Social Security, or now that you are in a relationship with someone like your parents that are approaching Social Security, how do you get them ready? What number should they call? We don't have those meetings very often, especially at smaller employers. So, as you can imagine, it's if a person doesn't save for retirement or doesn't have an understanding as to how that plan works,
Mm-hmm.
they disengage, and it's kind of predictable. Why would you not disengage if you don't know what's going on? And then we have those problems where people don't don't act like investors. They don't leave their money in. They don't take advantage of market downturns.
Right.
Right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And then they wait, by the time we've talked about this on numerous and numerous occasions. By the time they get ready to talk about um, retirement, it's almost retirement time. It's like 2 days away from retirement time. So,
Yeah.
um, so that's when they start to panic, and then they see that they don't have enough, and certain things could be going on in the world that is increasing their monthly costs and all that sort of stuff. So, which is where we are right now, to be quite honest. There's so many seniors that are really panicked. They're really
Oh yeah.
panicked right now.
Oh yeah. Oh, most
Yeah.
definitely. Most definitely. So, and that is one of the risks, right? That you're not going to have enough money, um, and that comes from perhaps staying in the default fund or staying at the default level, of investing, so you're not putting in enough, and not understanding that your lives are going to change. And then we often see the HR consultant or that HR person they're they get pulled into how do I get into the plan when there are some serious problems with the plan's design. Right, so
Mm-hmm.
we can look towards our HR consultants and our financial advisors like ourselves to actually help design the plan for participants. And then from the plan sponsor's point of view, their risk is people aren't taking advantage of the plan. I took all this time to put this plan together and nobody is in it.
Right.
And, one of the things that I talk about is retirement plans are necessary because depending on your organization, you want people to shift through your organization and retire. We want people to stay there long enough, make their contributions, and then make room for younger folks to come in as well. And that just doesn't happen when people don't have enough to retire upon.
Right. Right. Exactly. Yeah, that's
So,
very true.
yeah.
Hmm.
So, what can we do different? Oh, I'm supposed to answer that. Oh, that's me. Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
what we can do different is obviously education, right? As we've been saying, I think the earlier employees, when they start to work for corporations that offer 401ks and retirement plans, we need to educate them. Some of the other things I think that really right now is a trigger factor is, how many times are they saying, well, there's never going to be enough, there's not going to be any enough social security for you when you get to this age, which I think is kind of ludicrous because unless everybody stops working for any kind of if everyone stops being an employee, that's the only time they will stop the deductions from coming out of a check. So now, if if it's not there, it means we have no more employees in the world. That's my opinion of it because I've been in payroll for a very
Okay.
long time. Those
The
are two
deductions are
items
happening.
you cannot get rid of. I don't care how you do it unless you're an outside contractor. But yeah, no, that those two. So unless we get rid of and have zero employees with zero deductions coming out, or they're working for free.
Yeah. Well, you're making a very good point. And that is one of the things I always suggest to people is the 401k plan is just one tool in your toolbox, right?
Right,
So hopefully you've got 401k, Social Security, maybe a small business that you have that you're bringing
hmm,
in some business with, or maybe you have some rental apartments, but some other kind of income as well, and some savings. So to
right,
rely on your 401k plan is a little it's it's a little not good. I don't know what the right word for that is, but it's not a good thing to put all of your eggs in one basket. And we need to start teaching people that at a younger age. We need to
yeah,
find a way to say, look, we don't want to think about retirement at retirement age. We want to set the example of thinking about retirement as a family, as a group
right,
now, early. How are we going to handle this? That's what smart folks do.
yeah,
But we can also, and this is going to mess some folks up, but we can also design the plans a little bit better. So, for example, uh, we could design the plans so that their default path leads to better outcomes, right? So even if you're not looking to become an investor, if you just do the basics, you should be able to get a better outcome than we can now.
hmm, hmm,
Another thing is, or another way to do that is, instead of having the education meetings, let's choose some better defaults, right? Let's choose some better design makers in the plan so that we can just make that plan better. And let's
right,
make those decisions a little bit easier for folks. I used to do 403B meetings out back in the day, and
hmm.
we'd have three or four companies represented,
Represented.
four companies represented in the plan, and
Right,
each of them had at least 100 funds to choose from. So people would just do the best they could, and they didn't want to mess any. They didn't want to. reduce anyone's um, compensation. They
Mm-hmm.
didn't want to do that. So they just put a little bit in all of them. So you'd have people that had 200 funds that they were investing in, or,
Mm.
or 100 funds that they were investing in. And
Right.
that's just not more fund options is not better. Again, we're asking employees to be investors, but we're not giving them the opportunity to do, we're not teaching them how to be investors. And so they're kind of stuck. The other thing though, uh, that I really spend a lot of time on is those automatic features that we have. I know there's lots of employers out there that are saying, I match these folks. Um, that ought to be an incentive enough to get them where they're going. But a match isn't, you don't always have to match. That's not the whole thing here. And so we should really think about that. And so one of the things that I want to bring about, if we're going to say the first point is that there is a problem, the second
Mm-hmm.
point is that uh, it's there's a risk to that. What's
Mm-hmm.
that mean, right? Um, uh, so the first problem is um, our plans are not getting people to where they need to get to, right? The second thing is the risk to that is to the employees. They don't get to retirement. HR folks have a tough time. They're spending time doing things they shouldn't be doing. And employers are mad because they're spending all this money and they're not getting any benefit from it.
Mm.
So, how do we fix that? How do we fix that? Well, I'm going to say number one, because I was about to cut you off.
Mm-mm.
So go
Mm-mm.
ahead. I saw you about ready to say something.
Go ahead. I'll wait.
Oh, okay. I would say number one is let's have better default plans. So a big thing now is the target date plan, the target date funds, the ones
Mm-hmm.
that are ending in 25, 30, or 2040, those kinds of things. Let's have those where you can actually choose your risk tolerance throughout that fund, right? You can actually choose if you're going to be. That's a newer thing. It's been around for a little while, but instead of just having a target date for someone who's going to retire in the year 2040, let's have a
Right.
target date for someone who's going to be an aggressive person until 2040, or they're going to
Okay.
be they're going to have a less aggressive, whatever their particular risk tolerance is. Let's have them put some influence in there and still have professional management
Mm.
of their plan.
Okay.
Another thing is uh, we call it um, too many funds. It's actually there's a name for it. I can't think of it now because I'm on camera, but there's a name for having too many choices. That
Yeah.
actually leads to not making a decision at all. Paralysis by analysis is what we call it.
Yeah.
So
Like
let's
having a menu that's too big. It's the size of a
exactly.
book and you can't figure out what you want. So.
Exactly, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So let's clean that up. The other one, and this one really gets people, and that is the automatic features, right? So let's make sure those automatic features actually work together to help people actually reach their retirement goals. So, for example, lots of plans, and I applaud this with auto enrollment. And then on top of that, they have what we call auto escalate. And I think that's a great idea. If you don't combine those, let's say you just do auto enrollment, well,
Mm-hmm.
you get people in and they kind of stay there. They don't do anything. You get people in and you add an auto escalate to that point, and now let's say it's 1% up to the first 10%, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you get in and you start out, and as you get more money, as you get more time in the plan, it takes more and more money out of your check, and suddenly now you're putting in 10%, which is closer to where you should be with regard to what financial advisors think. So instead of auto escalate up to 2% or auto escalate up to 3%, let's make it auto escalate up to 10 or up to 12%, and then let
Mm.
the employee know, okay, every couple of years and or every year like it's done now, you need to reevaluate both of those,
Right.
right? Reevaluate being in the plan, reevaluate the auto escalate. um, the other one is so many times we think that that's going to cost the plan sponsor a lot of money, but we all know that more money in the market generally means more money you're going to have when you retire. So Instead of having an auto enroll at 1%, why not have that auto enroll at 6%?
Mm.
Have the auto enroll at 6%. And if you're going to do a match, instead of doing a match of 1% for every percent, contributed, like you up to 6%, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the standard method would be you enroll at 6%, and every dollar you match up to that 6% will give you an extra percentage. A different match could be you enroll at 6%, but you only get 50% of your match up to 12%. So it's going to cost the employer the same amount of money, but in order to get that whole match, the employees actually put in 12% of their income, which means they're going to put more money in at an earlier age for a longer period of time, which helps them reach their retirement goal. You see what I mean? But it's not
Yeah.
costing the employer more money.
Anybody, but who is explaining that in kind of detail to the employee?
That would be me.
Oh, and how often does that take place?
A lot, right? So
Okay.
that's a thing that we want to talk about during the plan design, because if you have an employer that really wants their participants to reach their retirement goal because they
Mm-hmm.
believe participants are actually one of their most prized uh, weapons in this
Mm-hmm.
world, this
Mm-hmm.
economy, they're one of the best resources that they have, and they really want those participants to reach that goal. Well, maybe they want to think about, all right, how do we help our participants actually reach the goal where they can actually retire with dignity? And a way to do that is to encourage them to be in the plan. Now, I'm not going to say that all employers need to do that. Everyone has to take a look at their money. I've never met someone that started a company so they could help other people retire. That's not I don't want to get that way. I don't want to sound like one of these folks that thinks that way. But I do want to say that if you value your employees to the point where you think they really are folks that are going to help you reach that retirement goal, then how about we design that plan so that they can actually get there,
Right.
right? And now, you know, um, we're saying that, and I'm thinking about a lot of the clients that I have that are using the safe harbor plan. And the safe harbor plan allows employers to um, actually avoid the problems that come around with testing the plan. So, so the way that plans were designed was that there needed to be some type of parity between the highly compensated folks and the non-highly compensated folks. So we got to put that in the mix as well. Right? So
Okay.
how are you going to make sure that you as an employer get to put in as much as you need to put in to reach your retirement goals? It's not all just about the employees. What about you as the employer? What about you as the C-suite? So I think the what I'm trying to get down to is that there has to be a discussion and there has to be a meeting of the minds between the needs of employees and the needs of employers if we're going to make retirement plans work for everybody involved. There has
Oh,
to be a discussion to meet those. We can't just design the retirement plan just for employees. That's not reality. Like I'm an employer myself. I don't have a retirement plan designed just for employees. We can't design a retirement plan just for the owners of the organization.
right.
That's that's how we get these types of plans that aren't really designed for employees, and in fact, they're designed for the companies that provide them.
Mm.
Right? They're
Mm-hmm.
designed for efficiency. They're designed for getting the most money in with the least amount of money or effort out there.
Mm.
So I cut you off. You were about to
No,
say something.
I was just saying, I think you pretty much answered it because, again, I know it's primarily, I mean, it's established before because of the owners of the company, and then as a benefit, to encourage longevity with their employees and that you care, then you provide those programs like your health insurance and so forth and so on. But I don't know if maybe, and I know a lot of it, so therefore a lot of it is going to the explanations and details is going to the owner, and maybe some more basic classes, which could be hosted by their companies, their HR departments, if they
You know
have.
what? When I do meetings, I always like to have the employer there because without the employer, there would be no 401k plan. Let's get real.
Right.
They make the decision. So I always like to have someone from the employer there. And when you get right down to it, if an employer does offer a match, which many of my clients do, um, that is a benefit that the employer is giving to those participants. And they're not doing it because they like them. They're doing it because they feel that their employees are worth it. So
Right.
if you're an employee and you're not taking advantage of the match, that's kind of you saying to the employer, you know what, I don't need that money, you just keep it, right? So A, get the match, do that.
Mm-hmm.
B, from the employer's point of view, I kind of get this. It's not the employer's job to make sure you reach your retirement goal. So, this
Right.
idea that people have about why should I contribute beyond the match? Well, because it's your retirement.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the employer's retirement, it's your retirement, right? So if the employer is going to match you 4% on 8%, put your 8% in, get your 4%. Now you're at 12. Now you're putting in enough money, or you're putting in what financial advisors suggest that most Americans put in.
Right.
It is the responsibility of the employee to reach the retirement goal. But employers can help. And they've taken on that task of helping, all I want to do is say, hey, if you're going to help, let's help in a way that really helps these folks reach their goal. Let's make sure that the number one, that the automatics work together.
Mm-hmm.
Let's make that sure that the investment menus are not confusing, and let's also make sure that we have situations where if a person just does the default, if they
Mm.
just do that, they have a pretty good chance of having a better outcome than if they didn't do that.
Okay.
Right. So,
Now, who has the conversation? When you were, it's definitely not just the 401k. You have the other, your own investment portfolios, as well as your Social Security and so forth. I'm thinking more from the younger employees who are just getting started, has never heard of any of this stuff before. Who educates them?
you know,
Again, you.
that's a very, very good point. Regularly, I run into folks who have no idea how to invest. They don't understand what the stock market is. They don't understand what Nasdaq. They just are clueless. They have no idea. And heaven help them if they came from a country where the government actually put money away for them, and for their whole lives that they can remember, grandparents, great grandparents, parents were able to rely upon this government pension that would
Mm-hmm.
take care of them, right?
Mm-hmm.
Take care of them. Uh, and then they come to realize here in this country, you don't have that.
Mm-mm.
Now you have to suck it up on your own and figure this stuff out yourself. That's rough. So who's
Mm-hmm.
supposed to teach you that? Who's
Mm-hmm.
supposed to do that? Well, according to the IRS and the Department of Labor, people like me are supposed to do that.
Okay.
Financial advisors that are attached to your plan, uh, people who are your parents are supposed to teach you that when you're young, right? Teach you that you're supposed to take care of yourself, that retirement isn't one of those things that you can just keep putting off. We have this desire that being young is a great thing in our country because you don't have any worries, but that's because somebody else is taking care.
Exactly.
So I think part of adulthood now, and I can say this because I don't have children, so I can say this that part of adulthood now is making some grown up decisions, and that means mom and dad need to prepare you for that. And God bless you if you don't have mom and dad that know how to do that. You know,
Yeah, but
I think
you
that's
have a lot of kids that came out of the systems, that are emancipated on their own. You
Hmm.
have parents that have passed died when they were very young.
Hmm.
So these are people that don't know these things, right? So they're just learning. They do not teach you this in school,
Right.
and so some of the issues, as you were saying, for them to know is just there's no programming or anything that helps you understand that, and I think that's almost intentional, to be quite honest. But
You know, you may be right. I'm going to say you may be right because that's a topic for another broadcast. I think we should I think we should call this one an end right here. But
okay,
again, I just want to say that retirement plans aren't always designed for participants. Too many investments, um, add-ons, automatic add-ons that don't actually help the participant, and for lack of a better word, just a design made for people who are investment savvy and professionals, rather than folks who 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 don't have that background.
right,
Okay.
right.
Well, shall I read your bio and
Yes,
we'll call it
I
the end of
think
this
this was a
show?
good show. I mean, we have to keep reminding people of what the plan is about, and how they have to be interactive in it.
Well said. Well said. So I'm going to read your bio and we're going to call it a day. So, everyone, thank you so much. You've been listening to Conversations on the Patio with Crystal and Jevon, our weekly online, uh, we can call it a weekly online radio show. We'll call it a radio show here.
Uh-huh.
Um, I'm Jevon Thomas, licensed retirement plan advisor. And Crystal, my friend, is a I'm just writing. I'm trying to stall while I get the tip of it. Crystal is
Is.
a business coach and consultant. She's actually the CEO of Mitchell Business Solutions. She's the co-director of Recycling Black Dollars. Crystal is the co-host of the Business Zone with Crystal and Gilbert. That's another weekly online radio show, and I'll ask Crystal about Gilbert later. She's
Mm-hmm.
an instructor at Mount San Antonio Community College. She's also a certified network for teaching entrepreneurship instructor
Mm-hmm.
and a QuickBooks Pro Advisor financial strategist. Crystal, it has been a pleasure. We'll see you and everybody else next week.
Have a great week, everyone.
Thank you now. I think we are
We're still